Well, hey, North Park Community Church. Pastor Luke here with another episode of First Looks. And we're doing our Holy Week series, beginning with Palm Sunday, in which we look at the triumphal entry into Jerusalem as Jesus begins his final week leading up to his death and resurrection. And for our messages this year, we're actually going to be in Luke's Gospel. So this passage before us right now is Luke 19, starting in verse 28, going through 44. And we could go to all the way to verse 48. Could go to 48 as well. I'll make a little bit more of a comment on that in a moment here. But this is what we're looking at. And what we're... The angle that we're taking for meditation and reflection upon this final week of Jesus' life, we are taking the angle of tears. So we could say that the series is the tears of Holy Week. And message 1 is tears of sorrow. Message 2, which is Good Friday, so Palm Sunday. Message 2 will be tears of anguish, and that'll be Good Friday. And then message 3 will be tears of joy, and that will be Resurrection Sunday. So that's the plan. That's the plan. Okay, so we are using Luke's Gospel, and maybe it would be helpful to just throw out some context for us. Since chapter 9, Jesus has had his face set as stone toward Jerusalem. What that means is he's going to the cross. Since chapter 9. And this is chapter 19 right here. And so for the last 10 chapters of Luke's Gospel, Jesus has been making his way to Jerusalem to do what he came to earth to do, to die a death in the place of sinners, to endure the wrath of his Father, the wrath of God, to make propitiation for sin. And so this is it. He's heading to the city, and it says this: and when he had said these things, he went on ahead. Here it is, going up to Jerusalem. When he drew near to what we might want to say Bethphage here, it's Bethphage, Bethphage, house of the young fig, is what that means. So Bethlehem is house of bread. This is house of the young fig. Okay, he drew near to Bethphage and Bethany. We remember Bethany is where Mary, Martha, Lazarus, where they live. Okay. And at the mount that is called Olivet, right there, he sent 2 of his disciples on ahead. Sent them saying, "Go into a village, the village in front of you, where on entering you will find a colt tied." Okay. Significant. Which no one has ever yet sat. Untie it. Bring it here. If anyone asks you why you are untying it, you shall say this: the Lord has need of it. So those who were sent away found it as Jesus had told them. As they were untying the colt, its owners said to them, "Why are you untying the colt?" And they said, "The Lord has need of it." And they brought it to Jesus, and and we'll press pause right there. We want to ask a couple questions here. All right, make sure that's. Here's one. Colt language. What's the significance of that? Significance is going to be David rode in to Jerusalem on a colt after the civil war with his son Absalom. Okay. Solomon rode in on a colt. And then, most notably, Zechariah 9:9, in prophesying about the Messiah, says that he will come riding on a colt there. So there is a prophetic fulfillment that is going on right here. Now, the which no one has ever yet sat. There's some different thoughts on this. One thought is the purity of animal to bear Christ. That's one thought that's out there as to why it is the way that it is. Here's something else that's really fascinating about this. Jesus sends these 2 of his disciples on ahead and says, "Hey, you're gonna find at Bethphage. This is a small village. Some call it kind of even just this outlying suburb." And suburb is too too big of a name for this. It's the one stoplight little town that you go through. And so he says, going up there, you'll see a colt, all right, and I want you to bring it to me. And if someone asks you why you're untying it, here's what you need to tell them: the Lord has need of it. What is this? This is a password or code word that Jesus has prearranged. Yeah. And Jesus has a prearranged password. So he has orchestrated this some way. Because Lord, that word in the Greek, kyrios, it is a very generic word. It could be even akin to saying sir. And so to say that the Lord has need of it is not particularly descriptive to just some random person that is unfamiliar with Jesus or whatever. So there's a possibility that this is someone that Jesus knew well, and so to say the Lord in reference to Jesus might have just been like something that was readily understood, and they could say, okay, if Jesus needs it, but it seems there seems to be quite a bit of agreement from commentators on this, that this is a prearranged code word that Jesus has orchestrated. What does that indicate to us? This is all part of Jesus's plan. All part of Jesus's plan. And we look at him riding in on a colt, but yeah, like at a far greater magnitude, this is a part of his redemptive plan as he's on his way to the cross. Okay, so these disciples they bring the colt to Jesus, and they throw their cloaks on the colt. They lift him up and they set Jesus on it. And as he rode along, they spread their cloaks on the road. And so just remember, cloaks were valuable. Many may only have one. Remember that first century roads were not cleaned up very well. There would have been fecal matter there from animals. They would have been dirty, filthy, and they will not have the colt carrying the Lord tread on that. Better that it would walk upon their very cloaks as a way of honoring Christ. As he was drawing near, already on the way down the Mount of Olives, the whole multitude of his disciples, began to rejoice and praise God. With loud voices for all the mighty works that they had seen. Just maybe a quick comment here. The multitude is Jesus's disciples, not the Jews of Jerusalem. Sometimes when we're thinking about this passage, we tend to think that, well, wow, these guys really flipped positions here, where now on Sunday they're celebrating and singing out to Jesus, and then on Friday they're yelling, "Crucify him." But that's not exactly what's going on. Jesus had his growing group of disciples, and remember that he's coming up on Passover. Thursday night will be Passover for him, and so you would have had tens of thousands of Jews swelling up the population of Jerusalem. His disciples here, maybe a couple hundred. Okay, so this is still a really great thing that's going on here, but there are the Jews in Jerusalem are the ones who are going to cry out for his crucifixion in a few days' time. So these Jews, his disciples, his followers, they rejoice, they praise God with loud voice for all the mighty works that they had seen, saying, "Blessed is the King." It's huge. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Don't miss that either. This is huge. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest. And some of the Pharisees in the crowd, let me just, real quick, this is worship. In Matthew's gospel, we'll see that they cry out, Hosanna, which is Lord, save us, Lord, save us. And so there's that's in Matthew's account, but Luke wants to magnify that Jesus, he was being exalted over, and worshipped, and as the king that has come. And the Pharisees, they say, absolutely not. They said, rebuke your followers. Why? 3 reasons. 1, Yahweh is to be the recipient of worship. So, here, let me just get too much going on here. I want to save some space. So 1, Yahweh. 2, the priests and Pharisees ruled the Jews through the Sanhedrin. And then 3, Rome had its own king, and they don't like hearing about any rivals. And so for all of those reasons, collectively, they are told, Jesus is told by the Pharisees to rebuke the disciples, and he answered. He says this is just an awesome line. He said, "I tell you that if these disciples of mine were silent, the very stones themselves would cry out." Now, just real quick here. Jesus had been concealing his identity. Now he embraces it. And it's not that he was ever, trying to, not embrace his identity as the Messiah. It wasn't that at all. But it was, he would cast out a demon, and he would say, silence, to you, and he would heal somebody, and he'd say, don't go around telling people about this, and it would say because his time had not yet come, and because it wasn't time for him to go to the cross. He was still doing his preaching ministry on the kingdom, and so now the preaching ministry of the kingdom has come to a close, and now he unveils himself as the king, and now he is ready to go to war. But his war is not against flesh and blood. His war is against sin and death, and he will be victorious. Okay. Now, there's, I don't think I mentioned that I would talk about this a little bit more. Let me get maybe just a new color here. Just kind of differentiate this thought. This right here is very clear. King Jesus is king, right? It says it right there. Blessed is the king. Okay. This next part is what we're going to look at, but there's also what comes right after. Notice I said up there we could go to 48. So this is 45 to 48 right here, and this is the cleansing of the temple passage, and you see Jesus as priest. He's the one who goes in and declares what the temple is for and how it ought to be regarded and how it ought to be kept, and how it ought to be, its purpose ought to be preserved, as being a house of prayer, a place of intercession and mediation between God and his people. That was the role of the priest. And so Jesus is seen as he's performing a priestly duty in going into the temple. And now we have this part right here, and you already know what I'm going to say if you're tracking with the threefold office of Jesus. We see Jesus is prophet here. We see he wept over it. That is very reminiscent of Jeremiah, who wept over the destruction of Jerusalem as Babylon came. And then we also see, but now these things are hidden from your eyes. That's a prophetic pronouncement, that sort of thing. And then this last part right here, for the days will come upon you. This is a foretelling of impending destruction, of judgment, foretelling of the destruction for their sin and lack of repentance. And so within this next unit right here, which is this right here is 40 to 44 right here, this section. It's layered with prophet association. So I just want to highlight that. I don't know if I'm going to bring that up in my sermon at all. I'm not originally intending on including the cleansing of the temple part, because my sermon focal point is on Jesus's weeping over Jerusalem as he enters into it. So I'm not sure what degree I'll talk about the threefold office of prophet, priest, and king that's shown up here, but it is here. It's unquestionably here, and it's at least worth making note of for this video. So if nothing else, those who choose to watch these videos, you get the extra material, you get the good stuff here. So all right. So when Jesus drew near, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure the count, but this is repeated often from Luke 9 onward. I need to double check that, but I've got that in my head from something in the past. And when he saw the city, what's the city? Jerusalem. And he wept over it. Let's be very clear here. This is not a couple tears streaming down his face. This is he wailed over it. He wailed over it. He sobbed over it. This is a deep moving in his spirit. This is a very overt emotional response upon seeing Jerusalem as he draws near. And then look at this. Would that you, even you, had known on this day, if you would have known on this day the things that make for peace. Okay, so there's some things going on here. Okay, so Jerusalem, Salem, Shalom, city of peace. There's irony there, that the city of peace should have known what makes for peace. But then look at this. What is it that makes for peace? Right up here. The king. The Prince of Peace, Isaiah 9:6, was amongst them, and they knew it, and they knew it not. That's it. Jesus, the Lord, the King, who is the Prince of Peace, who comes in the name of the Lord, peace in heaven and glory in the highest. Peace was present among them in the person of Jesus, and it was rejected, denied. Peace was executed. Yeah. And so Jesus, he declares what will happen for that. Notice this, that now these things are hidden, so they have reached the point of no return. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will set up a barricade around you, and they'll surround you on every side. They will tear you down to the ground, you and your children within you, and they will leave no stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation. Yeah. All right. Jesus came to bring his kingdom of peace, but he was rejected. And because of that, it would lead to destruction. Sin brings destruction. And maybe you know about it, maybe not, but this would literally be fulfilled in 70 AD, when Rome would come in and would destroy the temple, tearing stone from stone, flattening it, destroying the city. It's exactly what Jesus prophesied, and it happened. It came to pass. And so there we go. There's a quick there's at least just an introduction to this passage. It's narrative, and so it's handled a little bit differently than our First John series. It's a story that is trying to communicate something to us that we can envision, that we can kind of sense, that we feel, carries emotion. You can paint the picture of it. That's what we got to do. We got to paint the picture of it, and allow it to communicate to us what God intends for it to have for us. And Holy Week is a difficult week for me. I don't know. I know my sin, and when I see what Jesus came and endured because of my own part that I played in this, the things that I'm responsible for. Spurgeon said it really well, a way that I really resonate with it. How could I ever love the sin that killed my best friend? And I think that says it well. He's my best friend. He sticks with me, despite me. And just thinking about what he endured on Calvary is a very sobering, solemn thing. But Calvary is made beautiful in the resurrection, in which we rejoice. But this week is a good week to take some time to reflect on things, to reflect on the course of life, and how we've been living, not because of a right and wrong list kind of thing, not in a have I been able to check my boxes kind of thing, but as a let me come face to face with the love of Jesus and the wretchedness of my sin in a very real, deep way that that ought to cause me to reevaluate if I have really responded to this by offering my life up in love to Jesus in return. And so I hope that you have some time to reflect on that this week. And this is a sweet week for us in the life of the church. And this is a beautiful story of God's love. And so may we honor it well. And so that's that, church. I love you, and I will see you in a couple days. God bless.